Hello. Do you notice a difference?
Alright, sorry for this cutaway, guys. I didn't have time to finish making my video yesterday, so I thought I'd shoot a quick clip here today in the office. I wanted to discuss how to choose between the Sony 35mm f1.8 and the Sigma 30mm f1.4. I've seen some other videos on YouTube about which one would be better for which Sony crop sensor camera, and I have to say I disagree with some of them, so I thought I'd throw in my own opinions on the matter. So in my mind, if you are shooting mostly photos with your A6000 series cameras, you should think about getting the Sigma 30mm f1.4. The reason is because it lets in more light than the Sony 35mm f1.8, which will allow you to get a faster shutter speed. And I think it's more important to have faster shutter speed for pictures than it is to have optical steady shot for pictures. Why? Because optical steady shot is very good at reducing camera shake. It's only good to get rid of blurriness resulting from camera shake. Whereas a faster shutter speed will allow you to not only reduce blurriness from camera shake, but also potentially help you reduce blurriness from subject motion. So yeah, if you're using the f1.8 lens with a steady shot, sure, you may be able to hand hold the camera with a longer exposure. Your shutter speed can be a little bit longer, but that could potentially allow for more blurring due to subject motion. And so for this reason, I think if you're doing primarily photography, think about getting the Sigma 30mm f1.4. And this is regardless of whatever body you choose. The A60 400, which doesn't have built-in steady shot, or the A6500, which does have built-in steady shot. Conversely, if you are using your camera primarily for video, then it doesn't matter so much for there to be a little bit of subject motion blur, because your shutter speed is typically dictated by the shutter angle. So most of us aim for a 180-degree shutter angle, and then based on your frame rate, you're kind of locked into a shutter speed. If you're shooting at 24 frames per second, your shutter speed is pretty much locked at 1/50th of a second. If you're shooting at 30 frames a second, your shutter speed is more or less locked at 1/60th of a second. So in both of these circumstances, 1/50th of a second and 1/60th of a second, it should be okay in terms of eliminating camera shake motion blur, but you can't really go that much faster in order to reduce subject motion blur. Not that you want to anyway, you want to have some natural blurring in video anyway. So where optical steady shot really helps for video is getting rid of those micro jitters that come from hand tremors. So optical steady shot is very good at smoothing that out and making the footage watchable. So which one did I end up picking? So the reason why I ended up going with the Sony 35mm f1.8 lens, even though I'm primarily a photographer, is because you can always get faster shutter speed by upping the ISO. And I am willing to live with the slightly worse image quality due to a bump in the ISO. However, there's no other way to get rid of those micro jitters and camera shake besides stabilization, whether that's optical steady shot or in-body stabilization. I mean, sure, you can use a gimbal, but that's an additional piece of equipment that you have to not only buy, but that you also have to carry with you and keep charged. So I don't like carrying around a gimbal. So that's why in the end I ended up going with the Sony 35mm f1.8 lens. So yeah, if you do both photos and video, then you might want to consider going with the Sony. I think I'll talk about this lens in a separate video, so keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you in the next one.